For years, many workers believed the job market was a level playing field, where talent, experience, and negotiation determined pay and opportunity. But recent revelations have shattered that illusion. In April 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice achieved a historic milestone, its first ever criminal conviction for wage fixing under the Sherman Act. Eduardo Lopez, a staffing executive in the home healthcare sector, was found guilty of conspiring with competitors in Las Vegas to set nurse salaries. No bribes exchanged hands, just a quiet agreement that kept wages low and choices limited. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest barriers to advancement are invisible, crafted in boardrooms, not by the market. This landmark case isn't an isolated event. In January 2025, the DOJ and Federal Trade Commission released updated antitrust guidelines, signaling a new era of scrutiny. Now, practices like non-compete clauses and information sharing, even among independent contractors, are under the microscope. The message is clear. Collusion, no matter how subtle, will not be tolerated. The consequences are real. Major companies like Tyson, Cargill, and Hormel have agreed to pay massive settlements, totaling hundreds of millions, to resolve wage-fixing allegations. Even fast food giants aren't immune. Burger King faces ongoing legal battles for allegedly restricting worker wages through no-poach agreements. Across the Atlantic, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority has opened investigations into wage fixing among freelance sports technicians, echoing the global momentum. These actions mark a turning point. Regulators are no longer content to let quiet agreements dictate the value of labor. The era of secret wage cartels is ending, replaced by a renewed commitment to fair competition and worker empowerment. If your worth was decided behind closed doors, those doors are finally being forced open. The game is changing, and for workers everywhere, that means hope for a fairer future. Beneath the glossy veneer of innovation and progress, a secret pact simmered in the heart of Silicon Valley, one that would quietly shape the destiny of tens of thousands working on the front lines of technology. The world saw Apple, Google, Intel, and Adobe as fierce rivals, locked in a battle to create the next breakthrough. But behind closed boardroom doors, these behemoths were united by a different kind of ambition: to control the value of human talent, not just through competition, but through collusion. This was no ordinary agreement. They called it a gentleman's agreement, a term that belied the gravity of its consequences. Top executives, whose names would become synonymous with the digital age, decided they would not recruit from each other's companies. The logic was simple, almost elegant in its cold calculus. If the best engineers could not be lured away by promises of higher salaries, then wages would stagnate. The bidding wars over top talent would cease. Profits would soar, not from new inventions, but from stifling the very people who made those inventions possible. The emails that surfaced years later painted a chilling portrait. Steve Jobs, the visionary at Apple's helm, did not hesitate to fire off warnings to any competitor who dared reach into his talent pool. Eric Schmidt, then CEO of Google, passed such complaints down the chain, silent, complicit, and fully aware of the stakes. These were not idle threats. They were binding commands that rippled through HR departments with a quiet efficiency. Over time, the web of silence expanded. Engineers, programmers, and designers, those whose innovations powered the digital revolution, found themselves boxed in, their market worth artificially capped. Many had no idea why that exciting new job offer never arrived, or why their raises lagged behind the industry's explosive growth. Each denied opportunity meant another year of dreams deferred, another family plan postponed, another silent frustration. It wasn't just about money. It was about agency, ambition, and the unspoken promise that if you worked hard and excelled, you could shape your own future. The gentleman's agreement turned that promise into an illusion, replacing meritocracy with manipulation. For more than 4 years, this invisible barrier held strong, quietly suppressing the earnings and aspirations of more than 64,000 individuals. Then, the truth began to crack through the carefully constructed firewall. Whistleblowers, investigative journalists, and eventually the U.S. Department of Justice uncovered the evidence. What some executives considered smart business, the law saw for what it truly was: an illegal conspiracy to restrain trade and undermine the competitive spirit that fueled Silicon Valley's rise. The legal reckoning arrived in 2015, when the implicated companies settled in court for $415 million, a sum that, while large, could never fully compensate for the lost wages, missed opportunities, and broken trust. The DOJ's verdict was clear. This was not innovation, but collusion. Not competition, but conspiracy. Yet, the story does not end with a courtroom settlement. The Silicon Valley Wage Pact was a symptom of a deeper global trend, one where corporations use their power not just to shape markets, but to sculpt the very livelihoods of those who work for them. It's a reminder that the most profound traps are often invisible, woven from policies and agreements that operate in the shadows. As the world wakes up to the reality of wage suppression cartels, questions remain. How many other industries have similar pacts hidden in plain sight? How many workers are still ensnared in webs they cannot see? And what will it take for transparency, accountability, and fairness to become not just aspirations, but realities in the modern workplace? The unraveling has begun, but the fight for economic justice is far from over. In 2003, the corridors of corporate power in Brazil were unsettled by revelations that would send shockwaves through the global business community. For 2 decades, behind closed doors and beneath the polished veneer of multinational professionalism, 33 of the world's most recognized companies allegedly orchestrated a silent alliance, one not designed to foster innovation or collaborative progress, but rather to suppress the very lifeblood of labor, fair and competitive wages. Nestlé, Coca-Cola, IBM, Volkswagen, Monsanto, Natura, Sarasa, Pirelli. The list reads like a who's who of industry heavyweights, spanning everything from consumer goods and automotive to technology and financial services. Yet, despite their divergent markets and products, these corporations reportedly found common ground in a starkly utilitarian objective: contain costs by freezing employee compensation. The instrument of their coordination was chilling in its simplicity. Through exclusive groups like the Executive Salary Group and the Executive Group of Benefits Administrators, sensitive employee data, salaries, bonuses, benefits, was shared among rivals. The alleged result? A labor market where competition for talent was stifled, wage growth suppressed, and employee mobility deliberately constrained. Brazil's Administrative Council for Economic Defense, or CADE, began its investigation in 2023, shining a light on what could be the largest labor cartel ever exposed in Latin America. The case, still shrouded in confidentiality, has already raised fundamental questions about ethics, power, and the future of work. If proven, the implications extend far beyond Brazil's borders, serving as a cautionary tale for multinational operations worldwide and underscoring the importance of robust antitrust enforcement in the labor market. But Brazil is not alone in grappling with the dark side of corporate coordination. Across the Americas, another form of wage suppression has taken root, one embedded not in boardrooms, but in the franchised storefronts that line city streets and suburban malls. In the United States, a different but equally insidious mechanism came to light: the proliferation of no-poach clauses in franchise agreements. These legal provisions forbade franchisees from hiring workers from other locations within the same chain, effectively trapping employees in their current roles and undermining their bargaining power. The scale was staggering. At its peak, more than 58% of franchised businesses in the U.S., from fast food giants like McDonald's and Burger King to service stalwarts like Jiffy Lube and H&R Block, relied on these clauses. The impact was clear. By restricting worker movement, companies could keep wages low, deter competition for talent, and maintain a tight grip on labor costs. Change did not come quickly or easily. It wasn't until 2018, under mounting pressure from state attorneys general in Washington, California, and beyond, that the tide began to turn. Most major chains, faced with a wave of lawsuits and the threat of public scrutiny, quietly removed no-poach provisions from their contracts. Yet, despite these reforms, the culture of wage suppression proved more persistent. Even as the legal frameworks shifted, the underlying incentive to limit employee mobility as a means to control costs remained deeply embedded in corporate DNA. The legal battles continue. In April 2025, a federal judge ruled that Burger King must face a class action lawsuit alleging antitrust violations due to its past use of no-poach agreements. Plaintiffs argue these practices have artificially depressed wages and curtailed job opportunities for countless workers. And while McDonald's recently evaded Supreme Court review over similar claims, the scrutiny is unlikely to subside. Across continents and industries, the message is clear. As regulatory bodies like CAID and U.S. courts confront these practices, the global workforce stands at a crossroads. The fight for fair compensation and open labor markets is ongoing. For the millions whose livelihoods are shaped by these policies, the stakes could not be higher. Boardroom whispers, once hidden, are now echoing on the world stage, and the world is listening. Across the world, the clash of justice systems is starkly evident in how nations respond to wage fixing and no-poach agreements, practices that can quietly erode worker rights and undermine free markets. In the United States, a new chapter is unfolding. The Department of Justice, better known as the DOJ, has taken bold steps by criminally prosecuting those who collude to suppress wages or restrict employee mobility. Under the Sherman Antitrust Act, wage fixing and no-poach agreements are no longer just business missteps. They are crimes. The landmark convictions in 2023 sent executives to jail for orchestrating schemes that manipulated the salaries of home care nurses in Nevada. This shift signals a growing recognition that protecting fair competition isn't just about markets, it's about people. Meanwhile, Brazil's approach is different, but no less formidable. The country's competition authority, CAID, wields significant power, able to fine companies up to 20% of their annual revenue for anti-competitive behavior. Yet, there's a distinct administrative flavor to Brazil's system. Investigations and penalties often play out behind closed doors, shielded from public scrutiny. While the financial penalties can be severe, the lack of transparency raises questions about deterrence, accountability, and the visibility of justice. In Europe and Canada, the pace of change is more measured. Here, wage fixing and no-poach agreements remain largely the domain of civil competition law. The focus is on correcting market behavior, not on criminal punishment. Penalties are imposed, but executives rarely face the threat of imprisonment. These systems prioritize remediation over retribution, highlighting a cautious approach to evolving labor market threats. Behind the closed doors of corporate offices, data flows silently, a river of numbers and figures, shaping decisions that affect millions of workers. Salary spreadsheets circulate between departments, HR benchmarks are compared across industries, and internal reports are shared through encrypted channels or casual WhatsApp groups. What appears to be standard business practice is, in reality, a carefully orchestrated act. This isn't the cloak and dagger world of industrial espionage. It's something far more systematic and pervasive. Human resources tasked with the well-being of employees forms salary benchmark groups. These groups are cloaked in objectivity, touting the promise of fair and competitive pay. But beneath the surface, they often serve a different purpose. By pooling and sharing salary data, companies create a quiet consensus, a collusive framework that keeps wages in check. Conversations in executive roundtables are less about rewarding talent and more about ensuring no one company upsets the delicate balance of compensation. For the worker, the implications are profound. In these systems, individuality is stripped away. You are no longer a person with hopes, ambitions, and unique contributions. Instead, you become a data point, a variable on a sprawling spreadsheet. Your value is capped, charted, and quietly negotiated against a backdrop you never see. Decisions about your livelihood are made, not by your performance or potential, but by how your number fits into the grand equation. This invisible machinery operates without your knowledge. Raises that seem arbitrary, job offers that feel uniform, and the persistent sense that your worth is predetermined, all trace back to these data-driven mechanisms. It's a world where the worker's story is reduced to statistics, and the human element is lost amidst the pursuit of efficiency and control. We're told that in capitalism, hard work is rewarded. The story goes that if you negotiate smartly, leverage your skills, and outperform your peers, opportunity will follow. This is the promise, that merit determines your place. Yet, beneath the surface, the game is often rigged long before the first move is made. Imagine a nurse clocking in for night shifts, pouring compassion and expertise into every patient's care. Or a coder debugging lines late into the evening, building the backbone of the digital world. Or a marketing analyst translating trends into strategies, fueling the growth of an entire company. Each is taught to believe that their effort and skill matter. But what if the raises, the promotions, the pathways to meaningful advancement are quietly blocked by policies written in boardrooms, by algorithms, by managers who see only numbers on a balance sheet? The ceiling isn't always visible, but it is unyielding. Salary bands that don't budge, roles that don't evolve, evaluations that seem arbitrary or opaque. For many, the freedom to earn more or move up is more myth than reality. They're told to compete, to negotiate, to dream big. But the terms are already set. The rules, invisible but absolute, keep them in place. So what is this freedom if your choices are limited, your value predetermined, your future mapped by others? Are you an empowered worker or simply an asset, managed, optimized, and ultimately replaceable? The illusion of freedom is seductive, but behind it lies a system where mobility is restricted and merit is often a convenient story. The real question isn't just how to play the game, but whether the game itself can ever truly be won. If these questions resonate with you, we invite you to join us on a deeper exploration with the Curious Order. Challenge your assumptions about work, employment, and the very idea of meritocracy. Discover stories and insights that reveal what truly shapes your professional journey. Don't forget to show your support and stay connected as we unpack the hidden forces that define modern workplaces. Get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about success and opportunity.